Society is built on a series of invisible contracts you never signed. Most people spend their entire lives paying social taxes in the form of fake smiles and forced laughter. But the loner is the ultimate tax evader. They see the bill, they recognize the cost, and they simply walk away. The most dangerous thing a loner can do is stay calm when they are expected to be frantic. Everyone else is performing a role, sweating over their lines and checking the audience for approval. The loner is the only one in the room who realized the play isn't real. Watch the shared misery ritual in any office or family gathering. A group huddled together, feeding on the same complaint about a boss or a relative. It's the primary way humans bond, through the exchange of negative currency. It's a membership fee, paid in bitterness. But the loner refuses to pay. They don't defend the boss, but they won't join the pile-on either. They stand there, neutral and unbothered. To the group, this silence feels like a betrayal. If you aren't bleeding with us, you must be against us. Then comes the punishment for your defection. Because you didn't join the gossip, you are labeled as arrogant or too good for the team. They try to exile you, not realizing that for a loner, exile is just another word for peace and quiet. Consider the transparency threat. Someone asks for your opinion, but what they really want is a verbal hug. They want you to validate their delusion so they can keep ignoring the truth. They hand you a script and wait for you to read your part. Instead, you give them the truth. Not with cruelty, but with clinical clarity. You point out the flaw they've been hiding. The room goes cold. You've broken the unspoken rule. The preservation of the ego is more important than the pursuit of the truth. The punishment is the cold shoulder. They stop inviting you to the validation circles. They talk about how difficult you are. They try to starve you of attention, assuming that, like them, you need it to survive. They are wrong. The loner can't be punished because they've already opted out of the reward system. You can't fire someone who doesn't want the job. You can't ghost someone who enjoys being alone. This is the ultimate social superpower: total, unshakable indifference to the collective's opinion. The reason society reacts so violently to a loner's non-compliance is that the loner exposes the fragility of the social structure. Most social rules are actually load-bearing lies. If one person stops pretending that a boring party is fun or that a toxic family tradition is meaningful, the whole illusion starts to crack. This is why the loner is often treated like a heretic. In ancient times, heretics were burned not because they were wrong, but because their existence proved that you could survive without the church. In modern times, the loner is socially burned via reputation destruction. But here is the mechanism they don't understand. The loner's identity isn't tied to the group's perception. While the average person is a mosaic of other people's opinions, the loner is a monolith. They have built an internal world that is so fortified that the arrows of social judgment simply bounce off. When you don't need the group to tell you who you are, the group loses its only weapon. They try to shame you, but shame requires a desire to belong. If you don't care about belonging to a sinking ship, the water can't reach you. You aren't being rebellious for the sake of it, you are simply refusing to participate in a hallucination. You are seeing the strings on the puppets, and by refusing to dance, you make the puppets realize they aren't actually alive. Let's look at the shared misery trap through a psychological lens. Humans are biologically wired to seek social proof. We look at others to determine how we should feel. If everyone is complaining, we feel safe complaining. It creates a harmonic negativity that makes the group feel unified. When a loner enters this space and remains unaffected, they break the frequency. The loner's calm acts as a mirror, reflecting the group's own performative misery back at them. Suddenly, they don't look like bonded friends, they look like a pack of vultures. This is why the punishment for a defector is so swift. The group must cast you out to preserve their own narrative. They will claim you are not a team player or that you have bad vibes, but the truth is simpler. Your presence makes them feel foolish for their own participation. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing to support more deep dives like this. By refusing to participate in the drama, you aren't just saving your energy, you are asserting that your internal state is not for sale. You are proving that it is possible to be among the crowd without being of the crowd. You understand that their belonging is a cage and your isolation is a sanctuary. The transparency threat is perhaps the most frequent rule a loner breaks. Social interaction is 90% euphemism. We use soft language to avoid the sharp edges of reality. We say, "It's interesting," when we mean, "It's terrible." We say, "I hear you," when we mean, "I'm waiting for you to stop talking." The loner, however, often views language as a tool for precision, not a tool for comfort. When a loner speaks the truth directly, it feels like a physical blow to those who live behind the shield of social etiquette. Society calls this a lack of social skills, but it's actually an abundance of integrity. The loner values the integrity of the information more than the comfort of the recipient. This is why loners are often excluded from high-level office politics. They are too honest to be useful in a game built on deception. But this exclusion is actually a promotion. While everyone else is trapped in a web of lies they have to remember, the loner is free. They don't have to manage their image because they aren't selling one. The punishment of being left out of the inner circle is actually a liberation from the exhaustion of maintaining a facade. You aren't being difficult, you are being real in a world that has forgotten what reality looks like. There is a fundamental misunderstanding regarding the loner's rebellion. Society views the loner's refusal to participate in small talk or fake enthusiasm as an act of aggression. They think you are intentionally trying to ruin the vibe. What they cannot grasp is that the loner isn't acting against them. The loner is simply acting for themselves. This is the core of the unspoken rule regarding social charity. We are expected to donate our time, our attention, and our emotional labor to anyone who demands it. If someone starts a conversation about the weather, you are expected to donate 30 seconds of your life to that transaction. The loner views their time as a finite resource, not a public utility. When you stop donating your attention to meaningless exchanges, people feel robbed. They feel you owe them the performance. The punishment they inflict is to call you cold or robotic. They try to make your efficiency look like a defect. But there is a profound peace in being the villain in a shallow person's story. If being cold means protecting your inner peace from the noise of the world, then the cold is where you belong. The most effective tool society has to control individuals is the threat of silence. Most people are terrified of being ignored. They will do almost anything, embarrass themselves, lie, or betray their own values just to ensure the group keeps looking at them. The loner, however, has made peace with the silence. In fact, the loner usually prefers it. This creates a massive power imbalance. When society tries to punish a loner by ignoring them, it's like trying to punish a fish by throwing it into the ocean. The silent treatment is a gift to the loner. It provides the very space and quietude they were seeking in the first place. This makes the loner unpunishable in the traditional sense. You cannot withhold a reward that the person doesn't want. You cannot threaten them with a loneliness they have already turned into a fortress. This is why loners often feel like glitches in the matrix. The social software is designed to exploit the fear of isolation, and when it encounters someone who embraces isolation, the program crashes. They don't know how to handle you, so they eventually stop trying. Think about the unspoken rule of reciprocity. If someone gives you a shallow compliment, you are expected to give one back immediately, like a reflex. If someone shares a boring, unsolicited detail about their life, you are expected to match it with a mundane detail of your own. This is the social ping-pong game that keeps the gears of polite society grinding along. The loner, however, is the person who catches the ball and simply puts it in their pocket. They refuse to keep the game in motion because they see the futility of the exercise. This is often interpreted by others as clumsiness, social anxiety, or even rudeness, but for the conscious loner, it is a deliberate, surgical choice. Why keep a meaningless game in motion? Why expend the mental calories required to bounce a hollow plastic ball back and forth across a net of pretense? By ending the cycle of empty reciprocity, you aren't just being quiet, you are reclaiming your cognitive agency. You are deciding, for the first time, which conversations are actually worth the weight of your energy. Society will try to punish this by claiming you are self-centered, uninterested in others, or socially stunted. In reality, you are the only person in the room being truly honest. You aren't interested in the performance of others, and you refuse to offer a performance in return. You are waiting for something real, something raw, or something meaningful to happen. And until that moment arrives, you are perfectly content to let the game end with you. You realize that every ping you refuse to pong back is a second of your life you've successfully clawed back from the void of social obligation. You are no longer a player, you are the one who walked off the court while the others are still swinging at ghosts. One of the most insidious rules loners break is the requirement of vulnerability. In modern social settings, there is a frantic push to be vulnerable almost immediately, a strange, forced intimacy that feels more like a transaction than a connection. We are expected to share our traumas, our daily struggles, and our relatable failures just to make the group feel comfortable. It's a form of fast food connection designed to bypass the actual work of building trust. The loner, however, keeps their private world private. They treat their inner life like a sanctuary, not a showroom. They don't offer up their deepest thoughts or their history for public consumption or group chat entertainment. This gatekeeping of the self infuriates the collective. They feel that because they can't see into you, you must be hiding something creepy, dark, or dangerous. They punish your desire for privacy with a specialized kind of suspicion. They invent rumors to fill the gaps in their knowledge, projecting their own insecurities onto your silence. They try to solve you like a puzzle, frustrated that your pieces don't fit into their standard frame. But the loner knows a secret that the crowd has forgotten. True vulnerability is a sacred currency, a rare gift to be given with intention, not something to be tossed into the dirt for anyone to trample. By holding back, you maintain your mystery, but more importantly, you maintain your power. You aren't hiding in a hole, you are simply refusing to be consumed by people who wouldn't know what to do with your truth if you gave it to them. You understand that you don't owe anyone a map to your soul, and that realization is the ultimate shield against the prying eyes of the mediocre. The rule of consensus is another invisible wall the loner walks right through without looking back. In any group, there is an unspoken, heavy pressure to agree with the loudest person in the room or to align with the prevailing vibe of the moment. Even if the group is heading in a clearly self-destructive or illogical direction, most people will follow along, nodding their heads in a hypnotic trance to avoid being the obstruction. The loner is the obstruction. They are the ones who have the audacity to say, "I don't agree," or "this doesn't make sense," when everyone else is smiling and nodding. This is rarely seen as a valid difference of opinion. Instead, it is treated as a personality clash or an act of defiance. In truth, this is an act of intellectual sovereignty. The loner refuses to outsource their judgment to a committee. They understand that a group's IQ is often lower than the IQ of its dumbest member when groupthink takes hold. The punishment for this clarity is social gaslighting. The group will try to make you feel like you are the one who is confused, that you are overthinking it, or that you are making things difficult. They want you to doubt your own eyes so they can feel better about their own collective blindness. They need your validation to stay submerged in their delusion. But the loner trusts their own perception over the group's desperate consensus every single time. This makes you a dangerous, volatile element in any hierarchy because you cannot be bought with the cheap promise of fitting in. You are the glitch in their forced harmony, the one who reminds them that the emperor is, in fact, wearing no clothes. Loners break the rule of performative busyness, which is perhaps the most sacred commandment of the modern era. We live in a culture that worships the hustle as if it were a religion. If you aren't busy, you are expected to at least look busy. You are expected to complain about how slammed you are, how crazy your schedule is, and how you haven't slept in days. It is a competition of exhaustion. The loner often does the exact opposite. They prioritize margin. They value the white space on their calendar more than the appointments. When someone asks a loner, "What have you been up to?" and the loner honestly says, "Nothing," the social engine grinds to a halt in panic. To the collective, doing nothing is seen as a waste of life, a sign of depression, or a lack of ambition. The punishment they inflict is the lecture, the unsolicited advice from people who are themselves burnt out, telling you how to be more productive or involved. They try to project their own bone-deep anxiety about stillness onto you, because your stillness makes their frantic scurrying look pointless. What they cannot comprehend is that the loner's nothing is actually everything. It is the fertile soil where independent thought happens. It is the fortress where the self is rebuilt after being eroded by the world. It is the filter that keeps the noise out so the music can be heard. By refusing to perform busyness, you are asserting that your value as a human being is not tied to your hourly output or your social visibility. You are claiming the right to exist without justification. There is a specific, intoxicating kind of freedom that comes from being labeled the outcast. Once society has officially tagged you as the loner, the difficult one, or the person who just doesn't get it, a strange thing happens. They stop expecting you to follow the rules. You have effectively reached the unpunishable state. You have already survived the worst they can throw at you. You've been through the social gauntlet and come out the other side. They have tried the whispers, the cold shoulder, the fake concern, and the patronizing lectures, and none of it worked. You are still standing. You are still calm. You are still silent. At this point, the rules of the game no longer apply to you because you've shown you aren't playing for the same trophy. You are now allowed to be the eccentric, the enigma, or the wild card. You have earned your sovereignty through the sheer, stubborn refusal to be broken or categorized. This is the stage where the loner becomes a true threat to the status quo, because you are living proof that the punishments are actually toothless. You show others that it is possible to lose the favor of the group and not only survive, but thrive. You are the living evidence that a person can exist entirely outside the social credit system and remain whole, dignified, and at peace. You aren't just breaking the rules, you are exposing the fact that the rules were always an optional set of chains that people choose to wear. You are the one who showed the other prisoners that the cell door was never actually locked. In the final analysis, the loner is the only one who is being truly social in the deepest sense of the word. While everyone else is interacting with masks, scripts, and pre-approved personas, the loner is the only one waiting for a real person to actually show up. We aren't anti-social, we are anti-bullshit. We break the unspoken rules because those rules were never designed to foster connection. They were designed to foster control. They keep us shallow, they keep us exhausted, and they keep us manageable. By accepting the punishments of society with a shrug, you are buying your freedom at a bargain price. You realize that the exile they threatened you with is actually a kingdom where you are the sole ruler. The silence they tried to scare you with is actually a symphony of clarity. And the isolation they tried to shame you with is actually the only place on earth where you can finally hear your own voice without it being drowned out by the screams of the crowd. Do not fear the judgment of those who are too terrified to stand alone for even a second. Their rules were made by the fearful for the followers. Your life was made for something much sharper, the truth. Stay in the silence, stay in the clarity, and always remember, they can only punish those who are still desperate to belong to them. If you belong only to yourself, you are beyond their reach forever.